Okay, so I'm going to do chapter 10. Have enough time before I need to get going. So, they've been at the island, and they've been leaving St. Thomas Island. This came up with the examination of Candace Owens' family through her mother. She has people from the Caribbean, family ancestry from the Caribbean, and from St. Thomas, very influential families from St. Thomas. And it brings up a a common theme, but also in tracing lineage, because you're going to find these names of these people with white people and black people. Some of it is racial mixing, and some of it is because the slaves, when they would come over, they would usually these people would take on the names of whoever owned them. I'm not sure about how all of that was done and the transmission of the names, but then also going back into Candace's family tree in the Carolinas, they're married. So you also had the marriages, so there's all this painting of slavery was horrible and the people had absolutely no rights. And that's not really painting the whole truth. There's a in the presentation that I'm working on, this gets into Candace Owens, because this gets into white replacement, black supremacy or brown supremacy, because in the UK, you do have African colonies that have come there, and then the Middle Eastern. So it's black and brown replacement, if you will. And the hate crimes and discrimination, I have been the brunt of that. I've got cases all over the place. If anybody I would say, if I was a vindictive type of person, I'm sure she just wants revenge. And I'm sure that's what my ex-husband has been filling the airwaves with. Whereas what I'm trying to do is clean up the courts. My case, the only thing I care about with that thing is where there were the legal issues. And what the frick do you think you people are doing here, and what you can do here? My whole thing, my exit was destroying his career, so I was going to start a business. And when Microsoft became interested in it, the platform, all of these platforms, LinkedIn, all of these social networking platforms are making the type of money I said they could back in 2006, $1 billion off of advertising. Everybody had said, oh, you have to turn this into, because it's like the expat wives clubs, the same thing they do, help the families moving to a new city, with information, but then just practical services, but turn around and make it into a money-making business. And the platform is a tool for the whole project, and not just someplace for commercial interests to sell their goods. So anyway, sorry, I'm coughing already. So anyway, that's, as I say, I don't give a shit about that, but this whole trafficking, whether it be of wives of children, of mistresses, because I've told, I keep on telling everybody, and this is what the academic literature demonstrates, the whole kit and caboodle, what they've done in the courts in the past 40, 50, 60 years, depending on where you're looking, has just completely eroded the rights of parents and the rights of women in family and marriage. So this whole feminist movement, when they say it's a women's rights movement, they're full of shit, just like the human rights people, where that has been advancing the agendas of various minorities in Western countries. I mean, the perfect example is Amal Clooney. But then you also have Misal Hussain, or Hussein. She's from Cobham Hall. I'm pretty sure it's her profile. It's very, very, very similar to Amal Clooney, which Amal is Lebanon, and Misal, I forget where in the Middle East. I forget. I think it might be Pakistan. And then Anjali Rao, she's in Australia, but she's also, I believe, is Indian. So anyway, uh, the whole Middle Eastern women coming to the West to live liberated and flee the violence and be given book deals and get up on a podium and give speeches to realize their dreams. Of course, they get all of this money for promoting propaganda, which justifies the unending wars. South Americans doing the same thing. They just have a different how shall I say it, branding message and talking points. It's all propaganda. It's all meant to manipulate the public and justify, turn their attention away from what's going on in the banking system and the financing systems and how that's being used to take all of the power and wealth away from the people and concentrate in the hands of the wealthy and the corporate interest. That's one thing that they don't want you looking at. And then the second thing, and this is also, the unending wars are designed not only to make money for them and again concentrate wealth into the hands of the military industrial complex, power and wealth there, and they've been consolidating their power bases for ever since World War II, and they're a force to be reckoned with. Those are the two things. But again, even the war stuff is to detract attention away from the finance stuff and the economics. I mean, my favorite of all times is Pam Bondi saying, but don't you see what the Dow is doing? The dollar amount of the Dow. I think everybody across the globe laughed in unison at that one. In her questioning about the Epstein files. It's like, but wait a second, don't look over there. Don't look over there. Look how wonderfully you're doing. Oh Lord. If everybody knew how that whole thing is filled with nothing but air, when they find out, this is going to be a shit show. See, this is what they don't want you to find out. Okay, so here we go. So I guess that's my opening statement for Virginia Guiffre's Memoirs, Chapter 10. I was fixed up more than what I had usually made for 2 days, which was great because that car I had been saving for was finally within my reach. I had been waiting for the freedom a car gives every teenager for a long time, and now that I had over $15,000 saved up, I could pretty much afford to buy myself a nice car outright. Looking much better than the last time I saw him, Jeffrey acknowledged it. I went to his office where he was waiting for me, and he had a guest with him. She was unusual looking to the common stereotype drop-dead gorgeous girls Jeffrey had normally introduced me to. Of Asian descent, her name was Rena. Jeffrey had met her at an art gallery where some of her own work was on display. Now, the thing is, the art world, that's used to launder money. Uh, the artists these days, I'm sorry, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt, and all those guys are turning in their grave, and talent is long gone. It doesn't, I mean, I do my own artwork, which is very naive. I mean, I don't have any talent, but I mean, this shit, somebody will pay $5,000 for, and it's art. Who's not to say? You see what I'm saying? It's just as good as any of this stuff that you'll see. For example, look at the farmer woman. Oh, I do love. I'm gonna have to do one of those. I'm gonna have to do one of those, definitely. I do love her Megan McCain. I'm gonna do one, and then I'll scan it and I'll put it on. Oh yes, okay. So anyway, let's get back to this. Oh, okay. Uh, I'd been waiting for the freedom. A car gives a teenager. I mean, this girl, she's being chauffeured around by, okay, it is to go back and forth to Jeffrey Epstein's. But she definitely has money anytime she wants to call a taxi. She's living in the Royal Palm Beach, conjunto. And if she needs to go anyplace, she just calls a taxi. God. Um, So she had $15,000 she had saved up, but instead of using this for school, for this massage therapy that she wants to do, she buys a car. And this is $15,000. What was this? This is at least, I'm trying to think. This has got to be at least 30 years ago. Pretty nice car. Looking much better than, okay, maybe not a Mercedes, but still a nice car. Looking much better than the last time I saw him, Jeffrey acknowledged it. I went to his office where he was waiting for me, and he had a guest with him. Oh, I already read this. Of Asian descent, her name was Rena. Jeffrey met her at an art gallery where some of her own artwork was on display. She had a bubbly persona about her, and I could then understand why Jeffrey liked her so much. She fit into the subservient category that he liked his girls to fall under. Of course, if he's in the finance world, it's a stressful world. I mean, I'll give him that. Everybody, Jeffrey Epstein, look at his, his penmanship and his grammar and stuff like that. Okay, the guy was not an idiot. Okay, he wasn't an idiot. There are a lot of smart people. I don't, I wouldn't call him brilliant. I think that's probably also why he liked to surround himself with all of these academians, experts. That's their favorite thing. Megyn Kelly loves to do that. Bring in the expert, bring in the expert. The mainstream media has, always supported their propaganda with that, because the experts are just, guns for hire. Um, so of course he wants to be surrounded by giggly, happy-go-lucky girls, particularly on his free time. And that's also why these guys like these young, giggly girls who aren't going to be serious about anything, who don't care about anything. I mean, with Ron Eppinger, there was the same thing. Let's see. It was apparent to me that they had already slept together in the short time span that they had met. Of course they had, as their closeness was oddly noticeable. And I wondered what it was he was offering her to her in exchange for her body. Well, yes. I found out later from Jeffrey that he was buying her artwork, promising her the world as an artist, telling her he'd have her work in all the museums in NYC and the best art exhibits. Everyone was promising something and seemed to be bought off in some way or another in his company. It was only a matter of time that truth would come out. No, I mean, to my amazement, Rena was to be assisting me in Jeffrey's massage this day, not being a total knockout or anything spectacular, look-wise that is, but for some reason he seemed intrigued enough. As we made our way through his spectacular mansion, she was in total awe at every corner. There's a little bit of jealousy there coming through on Virginia Guiffre here, commenting on the present artwork and decor that we passed in every hall. It no longer seemed so grandeur to me anymore, but hearing someone else speak about it in such excitement reminded me of the days when all of this seemed so unforeseen. See, it's to impress all the young girls with all this fancy stuff. It doesn't matter if it's in bad taste. When we got to the massage room, or the dungeon, as I used to put it for its medieval looking appearance, we firstly, out of custom, all had a steam shower, where Jeffrey expected me to walk her through a servant's duties, telling her to take his other foot and start rubbing in small circles and stroking the arches of his foot rhythmically. I mean, spas exist all over the place. That's like booming business, and everybody goes in and gets these foot massage, hand massage, back massage, steam rooms. I mean, it's all the rage. Steam rooms for me, I'm like, oh my God. I can't stand those things for yeah, I've never gotten into the steam rooms, the saunas, the, as I say, the massages. Most of them don't know how to give a good massage, and I do better to go to the gym, get a good workout, and then do my stretching by myself. Because as I say, once I had a real massage from this Nordic masseuse. She was a professional masseuse. And like the ones that the you use for athletes. And oh God, when she, my back is hurting just thinking, she gave a massage. Oh, that was like, I was like, that's how it's supposed to be. And after that, all of these little girls who sit there and like move their hands on your back, I'm like, go away, you're wasting my time. When we all went to the shower next, and she followed in my exact lead, washing his body as well. Jeffrey absolutely loved the fact that two teenage girls were dually pampering him. I'm sure he did. Jeffrey wanted to move the massage bed, and I had to further begin to show her about the body upon his accord. She mimicked my every move up his legs and buttocks, keeping up with every stroke until he could not contain his arousal any longer and was already requesting us to start kissing each other. The start of the very reason we had even met in the first place. Yeah, I mean, again, not being forced. From that very moment onwards, and from the look on his face, he was yearning for her to orchestrate an hour of deliverance upon my meek nature. He started to stroke his erect manhood, and he was being tantalized, watching her take over every inch of my body in a dominating act of seduction. I was left breathless and sore after my first introduction into the world of S&M. Okay. Thank you. We don't need any more descriptions. Thank you very much. Rena considered herself a dominant dominatrix. She loved bondage, whipping, hitting, and eventually cutting her sex partner with little sharp knives. Oh, I said we didn't need. Oh, until they subdued to her punishment and agonizing pain. She was absolutely crazy if you were to ask me, and I couldn't help but wonder what got in her into this in the first place. Yeah, absolutely crazy. All I wanted was that Jeffrey was absurdly taking in to the appeal of watching us two interact, often with her acting as my mistress, who would fondle me with an insurmountable amount of whips and toys. Then she would love to finish off every session by hitting me across my face with a hard blow from the back of her hand and sneering over my curled up body, showing Jeffrey her ability to make others surrender to her extreme force. This reminds me of that Gray movie that they came out with, something shades of gray. I mean, I was just like, you people, you New York has always, I mean, New York and Hollywood. See, Washington used to be very providential, and we were considered like very conservative and just not up, with the in crowd. And yeah, thank you very much. I don't want any part of any of it. Um, God, she could be so opposite all of the sudden and be tenderly intimate with Jeffrey, stroking his penis lovingly and even speaking in baby talk to him, which he seemed to adore. He loved us pairing up so much that within months he made Rena an official, even renting her an apartment at the same place he had one for me during my extensive trips out to NYC. See, I'll get her another apartment. I mean, these girls are not, he could have said, oh, okay, well, you're going to go and stay in Virginia with Virginia. No, get her another apartment. Sending us out shopping together at all of the underground seedy sex stores downtown. We would bring him back thousands of dollars worth of sexy outfits, sex toys, and bondage material. Again, why doesn't she just say, I'm not doing this? I mean, if she had been saving up all of this money instead of buying a car. His favorite one was a black leather studded collar that led down the back of my spine to cuff my hands and feet together, offering Rena the most compromising positions to wield her afflictions. Once she was excited to pick out for my usage. She was good at eradicating my softer side, though, helping me forge an unpredictable scenario of me turning the tables on her, making her at my will instead of me always being at her twisted discretion. Jeffrey loved the rivalry between us, both striving to dominate the other one, but to me it was just another way of surviving her punishment. All for show, I thought. She was a madman let loose in a torturesome domain of violent sex and unbearable beatings. I wasn't sure how long I could hold off this charade of S&M. I just didn't want Jeffrey to think I couldn't give him everything that she could, always being replaceable in his company. As I say, this girl, Virginia Guiffre, was groomed when she was a young child. Now, that there seems to be some sort of, I can't say that she's enjoying this, but I believe probably by this time, she has such a low self-image of herself that this is, it's like these, in the church, these self-flagellating priests, how they used to like take these whips and whip themselves. I mean, I was like, God, people are sick. As punishment. So, and I'm sure that's what the whole S&M stuff is about psychologically. I'm sure it's not unique to her. She and I could often come across as good friends to his blind eye, but it was only a matter of time before the animosity inside of me was going to snap. See, she's jealous of the girl. Doing normal things too made it all half bearable. Having a lot of similar interests, we did fun things like go to the theater to watch Phantom of the Opera or visit several historical and art museums together. Afterwards, treating ourselves for a giant piece of greasy NYC-style pizza. Like I said, we really liked each other purely as friends, but the dominance in the massage chambers was taking its toll on our strange friendship. Yeah, see, they're like buddy BF. She's got somebody to hang out with. This is one of the reasons that she wanted TJ around in Palm Beach. She was lonely otherwise. Otherwise, she's sitting around all day long just waiting for some guy to call her and come and give me a massage. What is she gonna do? Like go and join the local PTA or local, wives club and hi, and then other kids her age are in high school, finishing up high school and starting jobs or whatever. Like I said, we really liked each other purely as friends. But yeah, the dominance in the massage chambers was taking its toll on our strange friendship. One average trip back to NYC, she surprised Jeffrey with a 6 foot by 6 foot oil painting of her and I lying nude in a yin and yang position facing each other. Although we were soliciting each other with sexual innuendos, the picture was still very carefully orchestrated to perfectly portray the darker side of Jeffrey's thrills. I'd be interested to know where that picture is. It was an amazing piece of work, beside the lewdness of it, but she would have known that's exactly what kind of art Jeffrey liked. He was so astounded by her gift, as he had previously asked her to construct a small painting of us together, but was not expecting anything of this grand magnitude she had presented him with. He lifted her from the ground and twirled her around before he thanked her profusely and embellished her with his profound gratitude. The only thing Jeffrey had to offer, he handed her a small wad of cash as her payment. It was the most appreciation I had ever seen him show a girl. Obviously moved by the gesture, he got her, because it wasn't something she just went out and bought with the money that he had given her. He got her an exhibit in NYC's Metropolitan Museum of Art. That's also what she did it, where she submitted her very own piece. She sculpted an image of my headshot out of clay, shaping it with the strands of my long hair blowing across my face. I was taken aback myself at her creation. She really did have an amazing talent. If not for her meaner streak, she would have been a great friend. I will never forget Rena for all of the ups and downs we endured together. Sounds like the Capote Swans. Really. It wasn't too much longer before I finally had enough of the abuse in the bedroom and I had to tell Jeffrey what I was feeling. She was getting even more violent as time went on, and with her question to me and Jeffrey why she didn't get brought on long trips with him, she didn't get the fact that she was just a tool for him to use. Jeffrey said he was already thinking about getting rid of her off of his regular list. He said she was becoming too clingy and that he didn't like clinginess or jealousy. I never even got to say goodbye or take the opportunity to keep her as a friend, like a girlfriend to catch up with once in a while. But that's how it was with Jeffrey. One day you sat under the blanket of his comfortably, and the next, without any warning, you could be discarded like yesterday's news. She would have taken it hard, but that's the game we were playing, and it was for those who knew what lines not to cross. I mean, since I've been back to DC in 2009, I mean, everybody's like, it's a doggy dog world, and it's everyone for themselves. Destroy or be destroyed. I mean, this whole facade that the Me Tooers are putting on about that they care about all of these victims is the most disgusting facade. I can't say the most disgusting facade I've ever seen because the anti-feminists are just as guilty. Like the Erica Kirk, even Candace Owens, she just wants to keep the conversation on Charlie Kirk's assassination and nothing that's going on, what's going on with, well, maybe we'll see some stuff coming all out about the trafficking of children with this documentary with Erica Kirk. So let's see what goes on there. Okay, let's see. I was further surprised the next day when Jeffrey gave me $1,000 to go shopping in downtown Manhattan to find a classy dress, on top of being sent to the exclusive beauty salon of celebrity list Frederic Fekete for a new look. As I say, this girl is living the dream of many, 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 many young women out there. And if you had to sleep with a guy, I mean, as I say, occasionally she had to service somebody else, but basically it's just her sugar daddy and her. And while the getting's good, she's gonna get. It was amazing to be pampered like royalty. I walked out of there feeling like I had replaced a young girl with a young woman. I felt beautiful. I mean, look at with J-Lo, and it's a movie that I like, Made in Manhattan. Again, it's a Cinderella story. It's a movie that I like, but again, what is this? It's this Cinderella story of I need a man to make it. Same thing with Pretty Woman. Um, as much as the feminists want to promote this independent woman, you still have to sell yourself in one way or another, either as a courtesan or as a wife. And, it's like, I thought this was the issue that the feminists were supposed to fix. So anyway, he had yet another surprise in store for me. Ghislaine called me and told me I need to go to a photo developing store and ask them for 2 ID photos, then bring them downtown to Jeffrey's Manhattan office. Weird request, I thought. I was more used to posing in full body shots, being sexually exposed as a gift for Jeffrey. I did as they asked and took my photos into the office where Jeffrey's assistant was waiting for my arrival. Still not telling them what the headshots were for, she took them from me and told me to have a seat for a second. A moment later, I heard Jeffrey call me into the office. I like what you've done with your hair. You've got more blonde, suits your glowing tan. I replied with an appreciative thank you. for sending me to such a renowned hairstylist and shopping money. Oh my God. My hair, I always have it up because it's been several years I haven't had the money to have it cut. I mean, I don't need to. I put it up in a bun, but I'm like, yeah. And oh my God, what they charge to get just a simple haircut. Um, let's see. I showed him my finds for the day, an elegant off-the-shoulder navy blue dress that had 2 layers that would swoosh and sway with my every stride. I couldn't wait to wear it on a special occasion, and I wouldn't have to. The pictures I had to bring to him, as he would proceed to tell me, were for my first passport. I was so excited. We were going to France for a close friend of Jeffrey and Ghislaine's birthday party, famed supermodel Naomi Campbell. I was so overjoyed with excitement. What girl my age with a background like mine was attending socialite parties and globe-trotting the world? Again, this is not a harmless victim that is not enjoying her lifestyle. It had only made it harder for me to see beyond the elusive walls I had put up to protect myself from the appalling truth. We left in early April, first going to London, Paris, and then our final destination being Saint-Tropez in southern France. If Hallmark had a postcard, Saint-Tropez would definitely be on the front of it. It was beautiful, spring weather, and everywhere you looked, women were dressed in bikini tops, branded with some kind of designer label embedded into, and the men were following them around like harping dogs in heat. In all of the elegance of the Mediterranean, La Bastille de Saint-Tropez was an impressive landmark. Jeffrey and Ghislaine were staying in one of the private cottages on the grounds, while Emmy and I stayed in separate quarters inside the hotel. The old-style cobblestone streets were lined with boutique shops and beauty parlors. It was the hedonistic stomping grounds of the beyond rich and famous. I mean, come on. How many girls out there wouldn't sleep with whoever you brought in to live like that? See, this is always the issue that I've had when we've got such horrific court problems in family courts. Child protection services, adoption, they're all trafficking these kids. We had the kids disappeared at the border. Now we're getting some answers. That was during Trump's first administration, and that was Stephen Miller, who was all kind of in charge of that. Now some things are coming out there. I mean, this is precisely producing girls and women like this who, well, I don't care, oh, I'm going to go shopping. Let me go shopping. And I mean, if anybody has walked into any of those, Louis Vuitton or any of those overpriced boutiques, I mean, I promise you, you will lose your cookies at the prices that they charge. I mean, thousands of dollars for the most, like, shoes you can't even walk in. I mean, it just is ridiculous. I mean, I'll go. One of my places that I'll go is Saks, off the rack Saks. There's one downtown here in DC. There's a Nordstrom's, off the rack Nordstrom's. The off the rack Nordstrom's are really like, oh God, that's my my favorite story, shopping story with the ladies in this town particularly is like, oh my God, and Nordstrom Rack, I got a dress for a penny, penny. I promise you. The best was then, I mean, I'm working as a hostess, so, I'm wearing like cocktail type style dresses or, casual uh, business attire, whatever. So anyway, I'm wearing it, and this woman, she says, "Oh my God, that dress, it would be perfect. I've got a wedding to go to, and it would be perfect." Now, I was thinking in my head, I'm going, "Oh my God, my mother would have a fit because the dress is black." And I mean, you do not ever wear black to a wedding. My mom was like Southern hospitality rules to the T. However, I was sitting there and I said to the lady, and I said, "And you know what? You can't believe. Better yet, it cost me a penny at Nordstrom's rack." And she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." But anyway, yeah, you go to the outlet, the things where yeah, they have the sales stuff, but look at the original prices on those things. Sometimes you can find a deal, but no, I mean, this is just like D&G, Dolce & Gabbana. Oh, no, as I say, you lose your cookies if you go in and see what they're paying for that shit. And it's shit. Shit. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, like, oh, don't get me off on where, Ralph Lauren, the whole fashion world. Oh, God, okay. That's where I first met Okay, so the next day we went to lunch at the grand opening of the infamous Nikki Beach Club. You know how much that cost? Where a cheap glass of champagne cost around $200. And if you're not keeping the alcohol consumption flowing like water, you'd be asked to leave to make way for the constant flow of prospective patrons. See, the money is flowing like you can't believe, and it's all for bullshit. That's where I first got to meet Naomi Campbell. She was wearing the typical attire, strutting around southern France, a D&G bikini top and a wraparound mini skirt to go over the swimsuit bikini. She was also, oh, and excuse me, one of the things that I also wanted to mention about the fashion world that really pisses me off. See, the the manner that the everybody is exploited in, Medellin. They have a big, like, Ralph Lauren is there, Levi is there. uh, they have a huge textile industry. But those people are so exploited. But I'm also like, see, if I can buy a dress like this, if I can go to Nordstrom's rack, I mean, I'm a great client. Well, but I have some money. But I did. I mean, for me, it's a game. I go and I'm, like, gonna find these things. So I do enjoy that part of it. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, see, this is the proof. This is the proof that we have so much. We have an overflow of all of these clothes. If I can go to these places in these outlets and find these clothes at these prices, sometimes they need a little adjustment here or there, but if I can find these things at these prices, it means that the market is being flooded. And the thing is to produce all of this, you're exploiting so many workers across the world. And then don't even get me started. And Ralph Lauren started the exploitation of using indigenous designs and textiles and different, jewelry ideas from indigenous people, and they're not getting paid royalties. That's thievery. So I did want to make that point. Okay, so she was a tall and stunningly beautiful. Her charisma was energetic, funny, and everyone seemed to hang off of her every word and laugh at her every joke. Now, my understanding, Naomi Campbell is a real bitch. Ghislaine and Jeffrey kissed her cheeks and wished her a happy birthday. And then I was introduced and followed in their suit. I think Cornelia used to hang out a lot at Studio for 54 with Naomi. She was surrounded by a league of assistants, friends, and fans, which didn't make it easy for us to all converse, but she got enough time in to invite us aboard, it should say, a yacht of a fellow she was kind of seen at the time for the before party ahead of tonight's event. I mean, come on, there are people who sell their souls, sell their children to live like this. We went back to the hotel and I gave Jeffrey a massage in his room before we all headed down to the pool to soak in some of the year's first sun's rays. I loved wearing my new ball gown and feeling like a princess. It was absolutely sensational and made me feel as if I floated in a dress. Now, I have to admit, I love ball gowns. But it was something I acquired when I was a kid. I was like, why do I have, well, no, the ball gown I liked, but having to wear a dress once a week to school, that I hated. I'd always take some shorts in my bags and then change when I got to school. My mom had a rule, once a week you had to wear a dress. Anyway, I swept up my long, but as I say, I loved the ball gown, so like most girls do. I swept up my long hair in a twisted clip, only letting down a few curly strands and layered on the mascara. But I'm not going to go out and spend money I don't have on a ball gown or sell my soul to have a ball gown. Anyway, receiving many compliments throughout the evening when we eventually left the yacht to make our appearance at the main birthday bash, I couldn't help but feel excitement for the party to come. It was the first celebrity birthday bash I had ever been to. Being introduced to model after model and the rich men that followed them around became dizzying. Jeffrey sat back and watched as I buoyantly worked the dance floor, coming back to the table where he was only to grab another glass of champagne every now and then. Every so often, he'd introduce me to someone new, pulling me aside to show off his eager young masseuse to his fellow pedos. These people had so much money pouring out of them. I don't know why he even thought they'd care in the first place. It made me feel good enough. It made me feel good, though. At least I knew I made him proud to have me in his company. Being surrounded by so many of Jeffrey's colleagues and his like-minded people that were considered the most sophisticated and the highly esteemed of today's world nearly made the way I was living lately more fathomable, at least to myself. I thought if everyone looked up to these people and they are all accepting of it, it must be just the way the world turns. I danced with a young prince that night, and with all of the help from the bubbling champagne, I couldn't remember his name for the life of me. See, this is kind of what she was describing with Prince Andrew, but she's saying she can't remember the life of him, the name of the prince that she danced with. I mean, most girls, particularly from the wrong side of the tracks, they dance with a prince, they're going to remember more than just his name. On one of my trips back to the table for another glass, Jeffrey leaned over to quietly whisper in my ear that it was a prince that I had actually been dancing with, and it didn't phase me in the least way. I went back to the dance floor and to continue to let my hair down. It was a fun bash. The entire crowd sang happy birthday to Naomi, and by the time we got back in the car to retreat for the night, I was giddy from the drinking and dancing all evening. I mean, she had a grand old time, and I mean, come on, being invited to Naomi Campbell's birthday party? I mean, how many people would do anything to get on that invite list? We had a guest in the car, and apparently we had already been introduced, but I couldn't even remember his name in the first 5 minutes of our meeting again. He was the hotel owner of some large chain in America called Hilton. Staying at one of the cottages near Jeffrey, he saw it quaint to loan me out for a night's massage to ruin an almost perfect evening. Jeffrey told me to come back to his room after I was finished with Rick. Oh, so Rick Hilton? Thankfully, he reminded me of his name, but also odd, I thought. Being so late, I would have never imagined Jeffrey could stay up this late, but I never made a fuss out of his requests. I gave him an affirmation of my understood instructions and headed off with the stranger into the darkness. I dimmed the bright lights in his bedroom to a softer tone, as if it might aid the vision of this short, balding man with straggling remnants of curly brown hair left to show for the remaining bits of youth left in him. I had to ask him to undress and lay on top of the towel that I had picked up from the neatly folded pile at the end of his bed and spread it over the duvet. I didn't want to waste a second in his place, getting right to the very reason I was even there. Turning around while he was getting undressed, being our first time together, I wanted to give him the impression I was actually a therapist and not a finale to the end of the night's entertainment. Not exactly what he had in mind, though, given that my impression was already made for me when Jeffrey arranged for our meeting in the first place. He chuckled to my response, was condescending as he came up behind me and unzipped my dress, which floated to the bottom of the floor as he was saying, "You can't really expect to give a massage wearing this here, sweetie. I'll help you out of it." He just wanted to see the hidden bounty my clothes were hiding, his eyes from seeing. I just went about my way trying to get his hands off of me and to get him to lie down for a massage. Making quaint conversation with him was pointless, as I was trying to send his thoughts elsewhere other than the apparent perverted schemes replaying in his mind from the heavy breathing he was making and the looks he was giving me. I was using all of the tricks in the turn-off book, even asking him about his wife and kids. Unquestionably, he was in seventh heaven, turning every one of my distractions into another flattering compliment. He was saying things like, "I love what you do, you to me. I love what you do, you to me." Okay. "I have never felt like this before. Come stay with me and I will pay you double, no, triple whatever Jeffrey pays you." Knowing he was a drunk idiot, I wasn't being lured in by any of his offers of money or a privileged lifestyle, like it's going to get more privileged than she already is. I knew these cages all too well, and I was better off sticking with the one that I was at least accustomed to already. She properly uses the two there. Holding back any composure, my ex-father-in-law, he would always say, "Una malo conocido es mejor que el bueno a conocer." The bad person that you know is better than the good person that you're going to meet. Like, don't believe that the grass is greener always on the other side. Holding back any composure now, he was going extremely wild, ravishing at my body, trying to tear off my panties like a hungered wild animal. After all of the champagne I had drunk that night, it gave me the nerve that I needed to know exactly how to handle perverts like this one, who had been no different from every other schmuck in my life. and I quickly shut him up with a blowjob lasting no longer than 2 terrible minutes. I had only been shy of half an hour before I was already getting quickly dressed and hurrying out of the cottage door. When I got to Jeffrey's cottage, I rushed through the door and told Jeffrey and Ghislaine, who were sitting in front of the fireplace reading a books, that I never ever wanted to see that guy ever again. When they asked me what was the matter, I told them of everything that had happened that night, even how he offered me to come to work for him, getting paid triple. I established a lot of trust with Jeffrey that night. He asked me why I didn't accept the offer, and I responded with, "Who would look after you if I were gone?" See, like a caring grandfather would do, he pulled me into his chest for a hug and told me that it meant a lot to him. It was so late and I was so tired, but I still had to give Jeffrey his massage that night. He asked me to just rub his feet as he fell asleep, and thankfully he was out like a light in no time. The next morning, I took 2 headache tablets and a ginger ale instead of a coffee, trying to contain my hangover as best as possible behind a pair of sunnies. It was mid-afternoon by the time I felt like myself again. We spent the day yacht hopping, soaking in the sunny weather, while Jeffrey and Ghislaine caught up with old acquaintances. Emmy and I were just accessories to look good on the arms of them. The next day, we wrapped up the tail end. Oh, I should have put an island here in my background instead of the New York mansion. Our trip and commenced our flight back into the U.S. I was paid a generous amount and set off to go car shopping as soon as I got back to Florida through a private seller. I was able to pay outright for my car. I wonder if I can change my background in the middle of these things or it screws it up. But anyway, I'm not going to screw this up. But yeah, I've got Mar-a-Lago here. I got Palm Beach. I can jet set without ever leaving my room. So anyway, through a private seller, I was able to pay outright for my car. I got a Dodge Dakota in cherry red and immediately had an impressive sound system put in. Okay, all you car guys out there can say how much this thing is worth. She was my first pride and joy and taste of freedom. I would love to drive her down to Lake Worth Beach to sit in my car and watch the waves while I listened to my stereo blare music and puffed on a J. I mean, she lived by the beach. I understand the Palm Beach club where she was living is right on the beach. So, like, letting the rest of the world pass by while I sat back and watched them walk past, wondering to myself what their story was about. I turned 17 that summer and I had accumulated a string of exotic destinations that I had traveled in such a short time. When I turned 17, when I was 17, that's when I interned for the senator, my senior year of high school. And so that's right before I turned 18. And, but her age, and that's when my mom, she said, well, so it was a mini term. For the seniors, you would go off campus and you could do these projects. You had to tell them what you couldn't just go and hang out. I mean, you could possibly do that and say, yeah, I went and worked on a yacht at Palm Beach, and here's how you work on a yacht. Yeah, I didn't know anybody with a yacht. So anyway, a woman I babysat for in Louisiana, she said, would you be interested in an internship with the senator in D.C.? I said, yes, I'd jump at the opportunity. So my mom was like, no, you're going to come here and work on the farm like you do on all of the vacations in the summer. I was like, I do that already all the time. I was like, God, most parents would be like, of course you can go to Washington for an internship for a senator. But Bennett Johnston was a Democrat. And also, she didn't want, I mean, no, this would open doors for me. And she didn't want that politics. So, anyway, thank God I babysat for, at Foxcroft, the Smiths. He was the English teacher. So they went out all the time. So luckily they went out all of the time, and I was able to make the money and save the money. And I rented the room from Walter Pincus, and I was able to pay for the room in advance. But I did tell the senator, well, that was Patsy that I went through, that, I needed to be paid because I wasn't, my parents were not financing this. Um, so they paid me. So, I was able to pay for it by myself, but I paid for it working as a babysitter with my babysitting money that I saved while everybody else was going to Tyson Corner on shopping sprees. I mean, I would occasionally, because the bus was free, well, maybe my parents had to pay for it and put it on there, but you could take the bus and I might hang out and walk around Tyson's Corner occasionally, but I didn't buy anything and I saved my money and I paid my way. My mom said, "You're not going to do it." I want to do it. No. So you see what I'm saying? You know, I get it. I get it. I was not molested as a child. I didn't have the challenges that this girl had. But nobody handed me life on a silver platter. Everything that I wanted to do, I did, and I worked hard to accomplish that. My mom did the same thing. Then she gets me. This is where it's like, wait a second. So she disowns you, she throws you out, but then you're at the debutante party, and then she disowns you again. Yeah. Try and figure out how these psychopaths work. It's all about manipulating you. But anyway, when, as I say, life throws you lemons and you make lemonade. Again, I am not going to belittle or denigrate or, this is horrible, horrible that any child is sexually abused. And this is the ramifications. But as I said, with the Virginia Guiffre case, and all of the sugar babies, not all of the sugar babies were abused as children and turned into prostitutes. They do have loose morals in their families, but this is not the same thing as the other horrors, Pizzagate and other things, Sasha Riley and other things that we're finding out about. So let's see, I turned 17 that summer and had accumulated a string of exotic destinations that I had traveled in such a short time. I was given more makeup and a pair of diamond earrings from Jeffrey. Ghislaine only wished me a happy day, wondering at times if she felt threatened by Jeffrey's and my closeness. So, well, I'm sure there was, Ghislaine was going through the same jealousy stuff as Virginia was. We went to the island after we left NYC, and I asked if Sarah would be meeting us, mentioning it had been a while since we had last seen her. He said he had some bad news about her. Expecting the worst, thinking she had gotten hurt or something, I was astounded when Jeffrey told me that she had been sent to his island with one of his friends for a couple of days, and when the housekeepers were cleaning her room, they found a stash of cocaine left out carelessly in the bathroom. He said he had no choice but to let her go. Addicts with no respect for themselves or his wishes had no leeway in Jeffrey's books. He didn't mind that I dabbled in drugs once in a while, as long as I never brought them along with any trips except for my Xanax. Yeah, pharmaceutical stuff's okay. Which he didn't mind because it was a pharmaceutical, and most of all wouldn't cause him trouble being a legal narcotic. Sarah took it too far when she crossed international borders with an illegal drug, risking her welfare and almost costing Jeffrey public attention. She lost her apartment and contacts in the acting world, only hearing from acquaintances once in a while that she was sinking deeper and deeper into the black hole of addiction. It was sad to find out, as I always did, like her. At the island, Ghislaine had just recently obtained her helicopter's pilot's license and wanted to get some practice airtime and flew Jeffrey and I to St. John's, where we picked up Alexandria Cousteau, the granddaughter of the inventor of the scuba tank and underwater explorer Jacques Cousteau. Ghislaine was out to set up air aft right in the air, but it was all talk. She was actually an impressive pilot. Still a daredevil, though. She got her kicks out of hearing us fret on the earmuffs intercoms. Jeffrey made it clear that Alexandria was a guest when I was told to adhere to her if she wanted a massage, which I obliged her with several times during our first meeting. It was Jeffrey who instigated that her and I reenact as lovers in lesbian acts of foreplay and penetration. I couldn't imagine a girl with such a high prospects lowering herself to something of Jeffrey's standards. But I later found out, though, through Jeffrey, that he had donated money to her continuous exploration into marine life and habitats. She had followed in her family's footsteps, all of them involved in marine biology in some way or another. See, this is the whole climate warming group of people. We actually got along really well. She was a real decent girl and loved talking about her passion and everything underneath the water's surface. When I wasn't busy giving massages to everyone around, her and I would hang out together. Often we go swimming in the crystal clear pool of ocean that the Caribbean had to offer. Once we swam out so far, not paying attention to our location, we were carried out to sea by the current. We took turns on the backs of each other, taking breaks against the strong ocean tide. It was almost a possibility that we nearly drowned out there if it weren't for some guys on a boat out fishing for the day when they caught us in their view. They picked us up and brought us back to the island, where we were reprimanded by a worried Jeffrey and Ghislaine to first of all let someone know where we were going at all times and never to lose sight of the shore while out for a swim. After that learning experience, I took their heed and proceeded with caution. I had a newfound respect for the ocean and its mysteries. Let's see. Having such a lover of the water as a guest made Jeffrey want to explore parts of his Caribbean he had never seen before. The next morning, we were met by a scuba instructor at St. James and given a few lessons on how to use the gear and more tips like how to descend slowly to the ocean floor as to not cause blood clots, as well as visual hand signals to communicate underwater. It was so exhilarating beneath the water surface, no voices to listen to, only enchanting sights to take in. We explored the surrounding reef and found a large squid, many sea urchins, and the magnificent colored coral that housed a many of the rich variety of the local species of fish. It was such a great sight to take in, holding a permanent mental picture of those adventures to carry in my head for all times. We all had such a great time that Jeffrey hired the same scuba instructor to come out the next day to scuba dive the safer parts around his island. We got bored quickly and not much to see but seaweed and a fish here and there. It didn't take long before Ghislaine decided for us all to explore other numerous locations by boat. Jeffrey needed a bit of convincing at first, and the instructor was quick to assure him that he knew his way well around these waters. Of course he would say that. He was getting paid a hell of a lot to do this in the first place. Why not extend it a few more hours? The clear water glistened and the tropical array. See, everybody's out for money. Everybody's out for money. When people talk like that, I'm like, you look in the mirror lately? The clear water glistened and the tropical array of marine life was on display as we wanted to stop at so many places. But you could see, as beautiful as it was, it could be equally dangerous. It took so long as we had to veer away from so many desirable spots. Finally, we found a good place that the scuba instructor thought was safe. He buddied us up into pairs, and we jumped off the back of the boat into the crystal aqua blue waters, beginning our descent slowly under the darker regions of the ocean's floor. We were situated on an open water with a cavern of reefs to venture in and around down below. It seemed to be quite a choice to scuba in, one that our guide said he wasn't familiar with, but to alleviate his bored clientele deemed safe to swim around. It was Jeffrey and guide together, Ghislaine and Emmy, and I was paired up with Alexandria. Miles, the houseman, came with us and stayed on the boat just in case something went wrong, and lucky he did. Well, you always want somebody on the boat. We were all too far under the water to hear his alarming screams of distress when shadows lurking in the murky distance started appearing closer and closer. Ghislaine actually looked frightened for once as she gave us the signal to start ascending upward, reminding us by holding her ears not to go up too quick, or, as we were previously warned, before we could pop a blood vessel in our brain and hemorrhage to death. Not a very lovely image, but neither was getting torn apart by sharks. Those giant shadows became clearer, and soon enough we could recognize their indistinct species as the terrifying and more aggressive breeds of shark, the hammerhead. Grabbing Miles's hand, I was the last one ahead of the guide to get on the boat, imagining the worst, as I waited behind Emmy and Alexandria, who were the next to follow after Jeffrey and Ghislaine. I was in too much shock to scream or cry. I just told myself I had to stay calm and to get out of this alive. Unlucky for us, we found out later that we were in their breeding territory and being sent a clear message that we were soon to be on the menu for their feeding frenzy. Yeah, okay, you don't want to go into the breeding territory of a shark. I don't know why the guy should have known that, but yeah, breeding is not the same as their feeding frenzy. I mean, sharks, first off, we didn't have shark attacks because people, up until about 100 years ago, people really didn't go into the water. Didn't go swimming around in the water. That's relatively new, so of course we are new food source in there. And they haven't been targeting humans. I mean, you're getting some, like all of these, God, these people get them in a cage and feeding the sharks. You know, you just want to stay away from sharks, but it's not like the Jaws stuff. They don't usually go attacking humans. And I think, most people would say most of the attacks were like accidents. The shark was just like taking a bite. Most of the time they didn't like it, but we don't want them to start, oh, we're getting used to this human, meat. Yeah, okay, let's go for it. So anyway, yeah. We all felt like we had cheated death, and I know it wasn't only my heart that was still beating out of my chest when we headed back to Jeffrey's Island. Okay, having said that, yeah, I'm in there with sharks around me. Oh, I'm gonna be shitting a brick. Definitely, definitely. Um, Jeffrey was pale as his designer sheets and looked like he had aged another 10 years in such a scared state. Ghislaine took the heat off herself, even barely taking notice of beforehand, and decided to poke fun at all of us frantically scurrying to get out of the water. It was just her nature, as I have never seen her move so quickly either. We got back to the island and all collapsed, our fatigued bodies in our own beds for a long nap. Freshened up and much more relaxed, we regaled our horrendous story again over dinner, this time in laughter. The following afternoon, Ghislaine piloted us all in the helicopter to St. John's Airport, and we said goodbye to Alexandria, where we all parted ways. I met a few more separate times in Palm Beach. I, I met her a few more times, separate times in Palm Beach at Jeffrey's mansion, but she wasn't a regular of his. Probably not as easy as the troubled girls were to bribe. Uh, and then we get to chapter 11. So we finish there. Yeah, I've got to start getting ready. So I'll do this afternoon, hopefully get through these things. I mean, this has been on the list of the to-do list because I did chapter 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 a long time ago. Um, so with all of the Epstein files coming out, and now with Prince Andrew, they're going after Prince Andrew again. I hope that people will start listening to what exactly she was living. And as I say, these documents were in the documents submitted to the court in defense of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I think, if I remember correctly, and I don't know if you know who submitted these, but I mean, if the prosecution submitted this, I mean, like, this totally exonerates, uh, at least in the Guiffre case. In the Guiffre case, this exonerates Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew. So I'm like, well, I know why the lawyers didn't do that. They don't know what the frick they're doing. When I started researching into what's going on in the legal community, one of the first reports I saw was the American Bar Association, 1970, the Clark Report. Basically, 70% of lawyers don't know what the hell they're doing, in a nutshell. So, yeah, it's all a shit show. That's where we need to focus. Okay, so I'll see you later.